Alright, so as you can see, I'm recording outside, so you might hear some nature sounds and stuff like that. I'll have to work on the production quality later on at some point, but welcome. This is the intro to a series that I'm tentatively calling Sick World. Now, why am I calling it Sick World? So, first of all, I want my approach to be, maybe a little different for you guys who are wanting some advice on health and weight loss and stuff like that. Because there's a million blogs out there that they'll tell you about, eat less and move more, do more exercise, stuff like that, which is good advice, but I wanted to approach it from like the point of view that incorporates what some people don't really talk about, which is your environment. So if you have two fish in two different fish bowls, you feed them the same exact food, you have them do the same exact movement and exercise and blah, 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 and the only difference is one of the bowls is dirty. Well, which fish do you think is going to be healthier? So the fish with the dirty bowl is going to be worse off. Fish doesn't know the bowl is dirty. All the fish knows is that it's eating right and exercising, but it still doesn't feel good. So, you might be wondering where I'm going with this stupid metaphor. In our fish bowl, which is America, Texas, the Western world, wherever you might be, I'm in Texas, so there are a lot of things making the bowl dirty that people don't really even realize. There might be nothing wrong with the food, maybe that you're eating itself, but you drop it into the dirty bowl. The comparison's kind of falling apart. But anyways, there are things that we need to be aware of in our lives to really achieve like optimal health, or at least to understand how to do it. It's not good to eat donuts and drink Coke every day, if you're not doing that, that's great, but is that really enough? Maybe not. So my job, as far as I can tell, is to try and present this info in a way that's understandable and actionable, right? So you can, here's why the bowl's dirty, now what can we do about it, type of thing. We keep going back to the fish thing. This next part might be a little bit of a controversial point of view, but I'm mostly going to try and leave the scientific explanations out of what I say for the most part. If I cite a study or whatever, obviously I'll link to it. But, I'm a layman. Most of you probably are laymen also. If some of you are doctors, good for you, I guess. But I'm also pragmatic too, so I don't really care how something works as long as I know it works, right? That's what I'm worried about. So, and that might sound a little bit goofy, but hopefully it'll make sense kind of as we go along here, and I make as many of these as possible, because I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. And there's a lot to talk about, and it gets pretty spooky, actually. A lot of this stuff does. Speaking of that, nothing I say or imply in these videos is meant to scare anybody or stress you out or whatever. I think there's a tendency that people have to, or I'm guilty of this at least, is, you learn about something that might be off in your environment, and or it's making your health worse or something, and you kind of obsess with that thing, right? You really want to avoid it completely, or that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to make you obsessive and freak out and stuff like that. But the reality of the situation is that we live in a world that kind of sets us up for failure health-wise. This can be due to legislation, lack of legislation, medical ignorance, malpractice on the part of doctors, or just bad advice. If you think about it, you might have noticed that our world kind of sets us up for failure, or had a feeling even before I said that, just because, there's a record amount of money being spent on healthcare and stuff like that, medicine, but it seems like everyone's just getting sicker and getting worse, or that's what it seems like to me. I'm not ragging on doctors, by the way. It's just, there's only so much a doctor can do in this situation, because they only have tools that they can work with. So anyways, if you learn something new that freaks you out a little bit, just take a breath. You don't need to move out into the woods and live in a log cabin and only eat wild berries and deer for the rest of your life, unless you want to. But that's kind of my introduction. Hopefully I made some sense with that. I'm actually going through my own health journey right now, some healing from some things and stuff like that, some weight loss, fitness stuff, so I'll kind of be able to learn things together and hopefully, heal together, as I kind of keep going on here. So one thing I've already had a request to talk about, and that I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit here, was weight loss. This is a big subject. There's a lot to talk about with this subject. Part of the reason I wanted to make a series that looks at our whole environment is because I think everything affects everything. That's a line you'll hear me say a lot. That's kind of one of my catchphrases for my life, really. I'll elaborate on that at some point. I'm not going to do it right now. But I can give a more general view or some general information regarding weight loss, since I know this is a big thing that people struggle with. You know, some people go their whole lives and they just kind of never figure it out. Something I'm trying to get a handle on myself right now. You know, I worked from home for about 1.5 years. I was pretty sedentary and, you know, eating like crap, you know, and sitting in one spot. That'll do it to you. First things first, obviously, when we say losing weight, what are we talking about? You know, obviously we're talking about losing body fat, changing your body composition, changing the way that your body holds weight, right? If it was just about losing weight, you could cut one of your legs off and, you know, there's 1/4 of your weight right there and then you're good, right? So that's what we really want to do, is change our body composition, lower the body fat percentage. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, here's another disclaimer. I probably am going to start putting these at the beginning of every post so I don't have to say it all the time. I'm not a medical professional. I said that earlier. I'm not a registered dietitian. I have been a personal trainer before, certified personal trainer, and sort of help people in that way, but I'm not currently holding any certifications. So that's why the advice I'm going to give is kind of purposefully generalized, and I won't touch on super specific stuff, at least in this video. Probably in future ones too. So anyway, going back, how do you lose body fat? How do you lose weight? Well, the simplest answer, the answer you're always going to hear, in my opinion, it's a little overly simplistic, is the calories in versus calories out argument, right? The amount of calories you consume is fewer than the amount of calories you use from working, moving around, working out, stuff like that. Then you lose weight, right? It's pretty simple. So what's the issue with that? Well, most of the time, nothing's the issue with that, necessarily. Some people have good luck counting calories, but part of the issue is this. There's really no such thing as a calorie. I don't know if people know that. You probably do, but you probably never thought about it like that. But if you take a piece of food, put it under a microscope, you're not going to find a calorie in there. You know, it's just, there's no calorie molecule that is going to be sitting in that food, right? Calories are a measurement of energy expenditure. That's really all it is. It's a physics thing, not really a nutritional thing. So why is this an issue? Well, because just because you're burning calories, first of all, doesn't mean you're going to be losing body fat. If you eat 0 calories a day for a week, yeah, you're going to lose weight. It's not all going to come from your stomach or your arms or, you know, under your chin or whatever. It's going to be coming from your muscles. It's going to be coming from your organs a little bit, because your organs hold fat and tissue and stuff like that. And you're probably going to feel like crap if you're losing weight, you know, from not eating anything for days at a time. The second issue that you kind of run into is counting calories is not always that straightforward. And the reason for that is it goes back to what I was talking about before, which is the environment that we live in, the dirty fishbowl, right? It can actually affect how our body utilizes this energy we get from food. So body composition can be affected by things like thyroid issues. You've probably heard somebody has a thyroid issue, they tend to gain weight a little bit easier. It can be external toxins. You think about plastic, there's, depending on the plastic, there's stuff in there that's actually an endocrine disruptor. So it messes with how your hormones work, which can affect, you know, how you lose weight. I'll probably talk more about endocrine chemicals in a later video or a later post or something. They're really interesting. Anyway, so generally speaking, for someone who's trying to start a weight loss journey, I don't really recommend just counting calories. I mean, you can, but that's not going to be the only thing, you know, because I think that where your food comes from is way more important than just hitting a number of calories, right? Same concept as before with eating nothing. Well, if you eat a low-calorie diet of McDonald's for a couple weeks, you know, let me know how great you feel after all that weight you've lost, right? You're probably going to be, if you can get off the toilet long enough. Another thing I wouldn't recommend really are diet foods. And you probably know what I'm talking about. You go to these, you find these little microwave boxes like healthy choices, this is lean cuisine or whatever. You know, you throw the plastic container with all the preservatives and stuff in the microwave, it's frozen. You know, you melt the plastic fork in there because the sauce is like hotter than a volcano. No, you don't want that. Don't do that. I personally don't recommend things like diet soda either, really. I I want to do a post about artificial sweeteners because there's a lot of information coming out about those right now, kind of new information. So I want to talk about those at some point in the future, but they're not something you just want to be pouring into yourself all day. You can leave it at that if you really need an explanation. You know, if you have a serious soda addiction, if you're, you know, a couple bottles a day, yeah, it's probably better in the short term to not be kind of spiking your blood sugar with all that sugar all the time. But again, you know, sweeteners like aspartame, there's one called the theratol. You'll find it in like keto snacks and stuff like that. You just want to avoid those as much as you can. Speaking of keto, I am so good with these like segues and transitions. Some people will probably recommend following a specific kind of diet for weight loss. People ask about like things like keto, paleo, vegetarian, pescatarian, you know, vegan, stuff like that. I see them evangelized by people. I mean, people really serious about the kind of diet you have. So the question usually that I've heard is like, well, should I do paleo? Should I do keto? Should I do whatever? That's kind of a loaded question. Can you? Yeah, of course you can. Definitely. And you know, in my experience, lower carb diets are pretty effective for weight loss. You lose a lot of weight right off the bat with those, which I like because you don't retain as much water. And so you can see that progress happen. You see the weight on the scale go down. That kind of motivates you to keep going, right? It motivates you to further do that diet, right? Would I stick with something like keto forever? I don't think so necessarily. You know, we're just gonna keep talking about keto just because I'm on this subject. Sticking with the keto example, there are some pretty severe constraints actually to be doing a ketogenic diet. A lot of people that say they're doing a ketogenic diet really aren't. They're just kind of eating high fat and low carb, which is not really all there is to it. We'll probably talk about that in the future too. A lot of the people who do that they're not doing it correctly, and they can't really stick with it even when they're doing it, right? If you're just starting out with weight loss, I wouldn't really say that, you know, you got to stick with a specific diet, put that pressure on yourself, you know, because that can kind of cause some relapse behavior, right? You know, you do keto for a week and a half, and then all of a sudden you eat a bunch of ice cream, and then you know, it's just not a good situation. Another thing I would avoid, at least at the beginning, is super rigorous exercise. Things like sprinting, too much, you know, jogging. And the reason for that is that you don't want to destroy your joints, okay? Sprinters, runners, people like that, people who run marathons, they tend to get joint and like tendon inflammation from doing this running, right? And that's pretty common. You see them with the ice bags and the heat packs on their legs and stuff like that. Well, those people are trained for those activities usually. You know, if you're 30 pounds overweight or whatever, for example, and then all of a sudden you go and start sprinting on a treadmill, you know, your knees, your hips, your ankles, they're all going to be like turned into dust basically, right? They're not going to like you. So, you know, the impact of your feet hitting the ground like that, or the treadmill or whatever else, with that frequency is actually, it's going to cause you a lot of issues. You're jarring your body when you do something like that. So, okay, you know, we get it. You don't recommend a lot of things. So what do I recommend? Well, like I said before, this is more general advice. It's going to focus back on our environment and making sure that that's conducive to our wellness. If I get enough interest, I'll end up doing more posts on topics in the future. You know, if you guys want to hear about certain things, just let me know. I've got a couple things I want to talk about, like I said, but the point is I'm not going to go into a ton of detail right now because I don't want this post to be 3 hours long, so we're not going to do that. First thing I'd recommend is get outside as much as possible. I'm recording outside. This is natural light, you know, natural air, stuff like that. Very loud bugs, cicadas in the background. But get outside as much as possible. Put your bare feet on the ground and get as much sun as you can without putting sunscreen all over yourself. Okay? Now, please use common sense when you do this, okay? Unless you look like Wesley Snipes, don't jump right into, you know, the midday sun for 4 hours, because you're gonna get the worst sunburn of your entire life, and then you're gonna be mad and you're gonna come message me talking about how I gave you bad advice because you did something I didn't tell you to do. So start small when you're in the midday sun, 5, 10, maybe 20 minutes. It depends on your complexion. You know, I'm the kind of person, I would burn easily normally, but I kind of know how to do it without burning, so I can. You've got to kind of just learn about yourself, and you'll know if you look at yourself and you're white as a sheet. You know, don't be out in the sun for an hour and a half at a time. Try getting sun in the early morning and right around sunset as well. The sun around this time, it doesn't have the high level of UV rays that you'll get from like 10 to 5 or 6 p.m., 10 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. And the sun in the early morning will actually prep your skin for the rays that come later in the day. So if you get more morning sun, you tend to handle the midday sun a little bit better. Not a lot of people know that, so try and give that a shot. Number 2 is try and do some type of light exercise or movement daily. I know I just talked about exercise, but I'm talking about like something light, something you can kind of do, something low impact, walking around your neighborhood. You know, now, like I said, it's summertime in Texas. Don't have to do this at noon if it's 1,000 degrees outside like it is here. People generally recommend a total amount of hours per week. You'll see doctors recommend, you know, an hour and a half a week or something like that. I would recommend 15 to 30 minutes per day of something. You know, I wouldn't want you just doing all your exercise in one day, the hour and a half or whatever. You know, you were made to move around. Your body was made to kind of be in motion and not sitting all day, right? 3, to the best of your ability, keep artificial light to an absolute minimum after sunset. Really just in general, but I'm breaking that rule right now because I'm looking at 2 screens. Don't stay awake in bed looking at your phone until like 11 p.m. or midnight or whatever. Every time you look at a screen like that, your brain is basically going to think it's the middle of the day because of the type of light that's coming off the screen. So, you know, you wonder why you can't sleep when you're sitting and you're watching YouTube on your phone at 10:30 p.m. or whatever. It's going to mess up your circadian rhythm. It's going to mess up your sleep quality. It's going to mess up just about everything else too, because everything affects everything, like I said before. Bring it back around. Number 4, this one I found is the toughest, probably, which is why I saved it for last. Try to only purchase foods without ingredients. Now, what does that mean? What do I mean by that? Obviously, I don't mean, you know, don't eat a meal or a dish because it's got ingredients in it. That doesn't make any sense. That'd be stupid and very bland. What I do mean, though, is buy and consume as many whole foods as possible. Okay? Meat, fish, vegetables, you know, these things you buy, they don't have ingredient lists on the side of the package that they come in, right? They got nutrition facts, but there's no ingredients, you know. A bag of chicken is just chicken. It's, you know, it's just food, plain and simple. Good rule of thumb that I've heard is, you know, if your great-great-grandmother wouldn't immediately recognize it as food, probably best to avoid it. Those are really the big 4 suggestions. Now, you notice probably something, out of all 4 of those suggestions, only one of them has anything to do with the food you eat. You know, I didn't write out a specific diet plan or tell you you got to eat, you know, subsist on lentils and, you know, LaCroix flavored water or whatever. I don't even really want you worrying about limiting the amount of food right now. If you can get to a place where you're consuming 80-90% of whole foods, at least right now, I think you can kind of eat as much as you want for now and not worry about it. But you'll likely find that the food you're eating is satiating enough that you don't have the urge to just like graze and eat food all day. Especially if you go lower carb, I've noticed that helps quite a bit too. Now again, I'm going to assume you're an adult here, so use your brain. Don't go and start dipping butter sticks in like cane sugar and think that that's good because they're like Whole Foods or whatever, right? Because then you're going to come blame me because you can't fit through your doorways anymore, you know. The laws of thermodynamics still apply to you if you're eating healthy. So if you eat 10,000 calories a day of whole foods, you're going to look like you eat 10,000 calories a day, right? Yeah, so that's basically going to be it for the introduction. I am wanting to make more videos on a lot of topics that'll probably clarify a lot to you and to me about specific actions you can take to help with health, weight loss, stuff like that. And I'll be, like I said, I'll be taking these actions myself too because I'm trying to get back on the wagon. So the crux of what I really believe, if you had to sum it up, is, you know, you can achieve weight loss, you can achieve your health goals without medication, without expensive doctor visits, without hiring like personal coaches or diet planners or whatever else. Unless you want to hire me. No, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. God did not make us with pill deficiencies, right? Does that make sense? Like, you don't have a pill deficiency. You don't have a Tylenol deficiency. You don't have an Ozempic deficiency. You might have an insulin deficiency, but that's kind of a different thing. I think if we start taking these steps to help ourselves be healthier, others around us are going to be able to do the same thing, and eventually we might make the world a little less sick. So that was Sick World episode 1. Let me know any feedback. I know I say a lot. I don't really shoot videos, but let me know if you're interested in me making more of these. Send them to your friends, family, everywhere. Paste it out everywhere you can. Shill me as much as you possibly can so that I can get this info out to as many people as I can. And I will see you in the next one.